are you going to send it to me, or I can just do it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've never really recorded through Zoom. I'm assuming it just exports to MP4 or something like that.
Yeah, it's MP4, I do believe.
Okay.
What did I just talk about? Flashbacks that they give us. I don't know what we'll do with this recording, but maybe it'll be fun.
Okay.
Yeah, have a nice face. Hairy face, so.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
With it. Very, very polarized lighting. You have, what's it called? Flashbacks to a time, to multiple times, looking into a device, seeing me years from then. It was yesterday, and then just now I had one. And the idea that I used the, I don't know the word, the device in language, that metaphor, the example, that you could be taking a crap. That's kind of bad for public.
That's a good one.
Reading a newspaper, mundane, something you do every day. Yeah, reading piled up. Viewing that, say, years from now or years from then, it stresses the brain to be able to handle that, because it's just not normal. You see yourself, it's almost like when an accident, it's literally an accident. Like there's a book, I wish I remembered the title. It was basically it was something about how to increase your chances of survival. And it was a guy who was like one of those risk adjustment guys or something. Mm-hmm. And it was like over like 40 years of doing research about every situation, whether it's an accident or disaster, and what's the most likelihood of, what's the highest chance of survival? Like, what's the best position to be in for the highest chance of survival?
Risk assessment. Yeah. I got you, Phil.
I remember he was talking about the airplane, and it's in the back, obviously, and close to the aisle and close to one of those exits. And that it's also dependent on the individual, highly dependent on the individual, which is why it is hard to gauge what's going to happen with a certain amount of people in the airline or on the airplane in a given disaster, depending on the type of disaster, especially because the airplane's a disaster, unless it's at the runway and something like that. Mm-hmm. Which those can still be deadly, basically. But any crash landing basically can be that way, because he goes to explain, because when an individual witnesses something and there is no format to cross-reference that experience within any other situation in their memory, the majority of people, unless they've had combat training or severe I think environment training, any type of stressful I can't think of the word right now. I have bad vocabulary. I'm not too tired now, but I'm kind of any type of what's the word? Why am I struggling? It's like an impact response, or when you go off of basically people go off of panic and they haven't trained in a situation that causes panic. There's no response. It's just like whatever is going to come to their mind the first.
Mm-hmm. You're talking about fight or flight?
It's fight or flight response, but there's high intensity training. There's a word for it. Police officers go through it. Military goes through it. Anyone in a situation where something like that could happen, usually police first responders, things like that, mm-hmm. train in the conditions of the proposed event. Otherwise, when that event happens, the training does not work. Mm-hmm. So basically, when the panic goes on, or when there's a high stress situation, the training must be done in a similarly highly stressful situation.
Yeah, of course.
That's what I mean. There's a word for it. Just like fight or flight. Fight or flight is the response people give. Then there's a fight or flight training.
It's basically trauma response training or something to that extent.
Something. Yeah. There's an official word for it. We love those official words, because then we pass this around like a meme in our minds.
Yeah.
And the person actually knows what you mean. You have to scrounge up for ideas. But and so in that situation, given that explanation I just gave you, most people, if they see the engine burst into flames, they do nothing, because there's been no memory to go off of. And the truth is, he's had recorded statements and examples where it was like a housewife or just a businessman, somebody like that, and they literally see it, they burst into flames, and they just look over and they wait for somebody to do something.
Exactly.
You've seen the guy eating popcorn in the cartoon with the globe on fire on Facebook.
Yep.
Says somebody will do something about that.
Yep.
Primary response. I don't know if it's conditioned in, stuff like that, upbringing, bystander response, or whatever it is, or if it's in our DNA or whatever. Or if we're just docile creatures, we're just llamas waiting for the arm to come around. But yeah, and just to the point where it was bad. And this is a gory book, not like then there was heads and stuff. It's like every once in a while there would be like, and it was a mess, And he would talk about people that were upside down, still strapped into their seats, that burned because they couldn't respond fast enough to literally to stop from burning alive right then and there. They didn't even get 2 inches away, and then some people just like managed to scoot away, and then they died right there. But then people who survived were always young, usually males, and they were people who had some type of background or experience in something athletic or basically some type of adrenaline based activity, and they reacted instantly. And that was literally the best way to increase your likelihood of basically not drowning, being trapped, suffocating from smoke, burning to death, and something like that. And he had the numbers all drawn up, and like the end of the part was he would base it off of reports that he did for actual, like he would investigate the events and stuff like that. So it's like, and he's like, this person just didn't know what to do, and then it was just weird, because it's weird stuff, because it'll be events where they'll describe it, and people will have just sat there. But and so now I got to figure out why I was saying that. Why was I saying that? I'm gonna go back to what I was saying before, and it'll maybe come to me. Right. Okay, but I don't know. I like that explanation, whatever it was going to lead up to, because it's an important thing, because half I can connect that to BS and say we're half in that situation right now, but it's I don't know. It's just the ability for people to manage, even micromanage the information that's coming to them that requires a response in the moment, when it's in situations where it's the memory thing, where they're in situations where it's directly outside of that which they're geared to do.
Well, it's a skill set. If you're living in an environment where you've continually been, basically sheltered from any type of, basic skill seeking, as far as seeking food and interacting with those types of dangers that bring up that type of response and trains your body. That's why, when you talk about athletes, they're in that place of being able to have that adrenaline response within the physical body. And most of us, we're not out there hunting and gathering. We're not out there providing for ourselves. We're stuck in these like conditioned boxes where we don't get to engage those types of things within ourselves. So it's almost like they've become atrophied. They've within that physical consciousness of us engaging on that level, they've died. And so people are going to sit in a burning car because they've never had that experience to engage on that level. They've never had the opportunity to exercise that muscle and experience of that. And it also makes me think of the same thing of, when the ships came to the new worlds, of people not recognizing them. It's, if you're not familiar with something, whether it's a visual thing or an emotional thing or a reactionary thing, it's so foreign that it's almost nearly impossible to even see or even understand intellectually or participate in. And so when you're in that place of being conditionally sheltered over and over and over by it, you've got no place of exercising it. You've got no place of practice. And so that response of just sitting by while shit burns down is what's going to happen,
The default response, or the lowest I can't think of the word, but it's, yeah, what I'm talking about. And what you're talking about, and either you want to let me record, I put on a screen recording because I like getting the gallery view, because it shows both of us instead of just my face.
Yeah, for sure, whatever. I'm all good.
Unless you want to switch to gallery view, but I think it automatically does.
There it is. Yeah, I switched to gallery view too.
I think it automatically does speaker view, but we'll see. I can time up, synchronize the audio to this one. What is it? Because you're kind of basically outlining that. Yeah,
it's the audio switched up, which is actually cleaner right now.
That's what mine did.
Yeah, yours did. Uh-huh.
All right, that's weird. Um, it's whether it's I mean, you mentioned how it can be atrophied, and so you got to think, well, where did it come from? What started it? Were we originally tip top, hunter gatherers, like you said, or were we originally better at adapting to stressful situations, just like these other civilizations that they talk about that were like extremely intelligent and apt. And it brings up a whole host of questions from there. Really, it brings up conundrums because you get back and it's like, okay, it was this way. And you drop back and it's like, well, that doesn't make sense. There's evidence of this and there's evidence of that. And you have both. And then it's like, okay, it was this way. And the same thing happened. So it's like, oh, everybody always says, oh, somebody came down and did something, meddled with people. I might agree.
Mm-hmm.
But I might say it was these guys from underground bases. I'm not going to go too far out there yet, though, because that's pretty weird if you think about it. Just well, here's the idea. So what does that happen? What does that mean? Somebody went back in time, and what'd you do? Well, what would you do? What would you do if you had a time machine?
If I had a time machine, I'd probably just go back and witness and watch. Mostly, I'm of interest to just be of witness to certain experiences probably in the historical timeline that have led up to this. And then my intention around that would be to harvest knowledge that then I could apply here to my experience moving forward.
Okay, what about then you find out something is either coming or something is going to happen because you can see both ways in time, and you're not too happy about the way you or your family ends up. Then what do you do?
So I have a very different perspective about that, which is very detached and probably callous to a lot of people. But I can say from a normal perspective, from a normal person's perspective, they're going to want to go back and try and change that.
Right.
Yeah.
The majority of the responses we're going to get is that they're going to try and play with time.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the truth is, you're going to get a bell curve. Mm-hmm. You're going to get people who say, no, I'm not going to change anything. And you're going to get people that say, well, I would change absolutely everything that I could. Mm-hmm. You're going to get the majority of people that would be like, well, I would just do whatever came to me at the moment. And they wouldn't actually be able to answer the question. But in that situation, they'd be like, oh, I'm trying to like move stuff around.
Buy a lottery ticket. There's something. Yeah.
And break the whole financial system.
Exactly.
Just some rich guy would just go, and then some more would cut out halfway through and nobody would know why. Mm-hmm. But basically, that's what I'm presenting to you is, okay, so with retrocausality, this is going like into branches here, but I got them all lined up.
Okay.
Retrocausality, when I went 3 different branches, it's not that many. You should imagine when they need supercomputers to keep it all aligned. And I'm not saying go buy a fucking supercomputer and sell your soul to it. I'm just saying that's what they use. Mm-hmm. That's what some of them people on the internet are trying to say. Either way, I'm not going into that branch until we're ready for that either. But you imagine like 30,000 different streams of time, and it's like, yeah, we'll get nasty, we get hairy. Mm-hmm. But and so you imagine how many notebooks and like post-it notes you have just all around. Mm-hmm. Using the post-it notes as a shit. They just blow away.
Exactly.
And eventually that's kind of what it amounted to, because time is so effervescent, so it's confusing. But basically imagine you go back and you find your bloodline, whatever nationality and blood you are, and you go back to the original one and you're like, yo, Papa, Roger, mm-hmm. Like the main guy. You're like, yo, here's a bunch of shit. Here's your tools, your sword, your spear, all that shit. You got everything you need. Go up, you're good to go. Even if it was like to be nice, not like go F them up, but like here, now you can go. You don't have to F anybody up, because there was both. They did both. It was like, well, what if we do that? Oh shit! Well, what if they wipe out somebody that keeps the timeline together? Then we don't make it to end up getting here to go back in time. Well, that can't work. The only thing that does work is if you don't change anything. So then, how can you not change anything? Well, make it so that they do everything they were supposed to do, but they don't have to actually have the suffering that they did. The end result is like the series. What's it called?
the 12 monkeys, this is disclosure. This is straight out the books.
Yep, totally.
That if somebody, I told you about it. I tell you about this link. That if somebody dies, okay, for time to continue to progress, you cannot get that person and bring them back so they can go chill with everybody that before that they were dead to. You can, however, trick time, and you can have everyone there watch that person die just like they originally did. Then everyone leaves, and you go quickly revive that person, or make another way, a loop around, a loophole for that, a workaround, work through for that situation. But in the show, they revived her to be, use your imagination. Just imagine you have cloning, so you don't need to. You don't need to revive them. But so then you go revive them. Everyone thinks that person died, and you take that person and take them with you and grow, raise them in your environment, in whatever environment, and they live somewhere else in the world doing whatever they're doing. But because they originally died in the timeline, they can go on and live as long as they don't mess with anything and influence anything greatly, and it won't have a big impact on the timeline. It won't tear it apart. And as long as the original people who saw that person die don't get word that that person's alive and they're over here, which doesn't matter because all the time somebody could say, oh, what if they were alive? Okay. But if they see that person, then they're going to like crap their pants, just going to mess everything up. Okay. Because they're not going to ultimately, they're not going to end up doing what they're supposed to do because of the influence of that.
The death. Yeah. I feel you.
When it's, fell in love with her or something like that and the person didn't die, okay, well, the fact that they were there caused something to happen in the timeline. With the death, the love then caused the influence. Well, the idea is with the death, the suffering that is there inevitably led to something, whether good or bad, and that must take place for time to continue as it should, as it was original. It's just that with that situation, that person must continue feeling the suffering. So it's very, very callous or strange, but that's just how it works, and that's how it is with time anyway. That it's not that, they died, not went and celebrated, and, if you stop them from dying, I'm not going to celebrate it. I know people are going to be sad because somebody died, and so to keep that going, them not being able to know that the person was saved and didn't have to die, they still have to feel that suffering. It's not necessarily that the suffering is always what motivates us to do great things, although that is often the case in many situations. But for growth and acting as a catalyst, especially emotional, spiritual, or emotional, mental, or psycho-spiritual, which is kind of emotional, mental in one. But that's how it is, and that's just a trip. Watch the 12 Monkeys first or second season, I can't remember, and there's a trip about how they brought that together in the story format, which is close to the stuff that went on.
What's the relation to karma when you think about that? Like, if you're going through the cycle of having trauma from, say, somebody dying, and that karma is directly related to your life cycle and the work that you're doing here, when you augment that and change that within a timeline by maybe showing somebody or bringing somebody back to life, or cheating them of that karma, cheating them of that emotional experience, what are the consequences of that moving forward, in your opinion?
Are you sure you want to know the answer?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm fucking asking.
You want to accept the karma. So the point, that's where I'm getting at, that the person is cheated from what will cause them to grow stronger.
Exactly.
Endowed upon them by the universe just because of how stuff works out. There's always a plan, in other words. Time is planned. No matter how spontaneous it is synchronized. There is some type of synchronization between layers that I don't know how to describe it, but the future always comes about, which is like, well, duh, what else would happen? But the way it happens is as if meaning is the basis for everything that we see that we think is random, that it just happened.
Definitely. A good metaphor for that is a wristwatch, or the internal tickings of a clock on that level. All of those things are integrated into each other, tick perfectly in exact harmony and exact perfection on that level.
Same thing. The gears are all lined up, and the celestial gears are lined up.
Exactly.
And so our timelines, our actions, and our psycho-spiritual, like our gears, our rhythms, and you're connected. And that's the kicker, that is actually, if you could see what that person over there is doing and what's going on over here and what's going on, and how it all just times out perfectly in the strangest of ways to both bring about learning and to bring about this coincidental connection or causality, basically synchronicity, that we can't observe the alignment, the source of the alignment between, as if there's some higher connection at play, some higher power at play. And ultimately, it seemingly connects with this energy that goes up and down. And when one goes up, another one goes down. It's which you could call karma, but it's just energy. And so energy is connected like on this huge grid or web. Mm-hmm. It's like the time looking picture I have on my front page of the blog. If you just go to the front page, I could actually I could share the go to the front page of the blog, and you'll see that funny looking image. That's a perfect example, just to bring it up. And I could screen share, but I tried that with Emily, and we spent like 20 minutes trying to figure out how to shut it off. And we kept getting pictures and pictures and pictures until we were just like looking at mirrors of each other reflecting into layers, which was like perfect for the situation and the discussion. But it was annoying. I guess because the app glitches on
okay, I'm here.
Operating system. Now you see that picture when you scroll down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
On the front page.
Mm-hmm.
Which one?
It's the one of like the spiraling kind of. I don't even know how to. What's that?
The orange one.
Well, it's amber. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah. The gears, the time. Those are time gears.
Exactly.
That's literally what the machine readout looks like.
Totally.
We're only aware of if 5 of those points in the lower right corner gear, the center left gear, the outer ring of that, and the inner ring of the outer ring, and then the far right one. Well, that's what we're aware of at in time in our life. Mm-hmm. And we just, these events occurring, and we're like, yeah, that's what made sense because it went from here to here to here. Mm-hmm. The situations, with what's going on, they can access the whole thing. And that's what it looks like. It looks like this event, and it's just 100%. Everything is mapped out in this huge cosmic order. Mm. So it's really weird.
And it's definitely, even looking at that image there, this is what I see. When I dive into that consciousness of exploring these things within my own work, this is very, very similar. When I was referencing the idea of the inner mechanisms of a clock, this is essentially what I was using. This is what I saw. This is exactly how I interpret this within my own perspective, for sure.
That is why I brought it up, because that's what it is. Like which wristwatch is not good enough, and that's where wristwatches came from. By the way, they knew stuff back then. It was sometime, I'm not going to get into it, but they would make the stuff. They just make gadgets and all types of stuff.
Yeah, you look at things like the Antikythera mechanism, which is very, very similar on that level for tracking. I'm guessing it was for tracking constellations, and a huge, part of being connected to that kind of cosmic celestial season stuff. But in the same way, it's just an interpretation of the clockwork. It's a look at the clockwork. It's being able, not an interpretation of it, it's being able to sync yourself physically with that understanding, and be a part of that. What are you choking down there?
Oh, that pill was broken because I make my own capsules. So I've been trying to, I have a video loaded, but it's like I ranted for like 40 minutes. I'm going to cut it down. The end of the rant is useful. In the beginning, where I described the pill maker, and I'm taking all my antioxidants. I haven't really taken them in a few days. So there's amino acids, vitamins, nutrients, L-acetyl-carnitine alpha-lipoic acid, vinpocetine, which is a nootropic, increases cerebral oxygenation, blood flow. L-carnitine, good for blood, and it's antioxidant. The rest are basically antioxidants. Excuse me. And so that's basically what that is. That's a cosmic wristwatch. And then so the Antikythera or whatever it is,
Antikythera mechanism, yeah. Uh-huh.
That's kind of what they said about it. And so it's a combination of a wristwatch, a calendar, and a time machine.
Exactly. Totally.
And the point is, they were doing it thousands of years ago, so that doesn't add up to cave people.
No, definitely not.
Kind of the opposite. We're the cave people. You get it?
Mm-hmm.
We're the cave people.
Definitely.
Come here and they're like, oh my gosh, look what they're doing with their food and their
exactly.
Look at all the
What
things,
the fuck?
the toxic, waste.
Mm-hmm.
They're idiots. I get it.
I wanted to, one of the things that kind of came up when we were just chit-chatting right now is a lot of the work that I'm doing as far as looking at what's happening to the kind of schizophrenic co-creative consciousness of the world right now, and how it's healing itself, and how the work that's coming out through Pizzagate and the start of that kind of seed in consciousness that's going to draw people into the work of doing disclosure and healing within themselves. I was having some dialogues. I've been working on a film kind of in the background that puts together a lot of like the civilian journalist movement happening that's right there. But the bigger and the deeper stuff that I see is like, this is the dam that cracks. This is where people cannot look away from the experience. And the more that they participate in uncovering it themselves, and, like the Pizzagate issues is going to lead to the sex trafficking. The sex trafficking is going to lead to the ritual abuse. The ritual abuse is going to lead to the secret societies. The secret societies are going to lead to the underground bases. The underground bases are going to lead to cloning. All of that whole kind of unraveling that happens within the experience of humanity healing itself through a process of full disclosure is starting to kind of come forward right now in a major, major way. I think that, it's been happening for a while within subtle adjustments, maybe not so subtle at times, but what I've been feeling recently is that crack that happened in the dam, especially around Pizzagate, is the crack now that everything is going to start seeping through on a level of consciousness that really cannot be denied. And it will push people to face these things or degrade. It's tied into their healing experience within the entirety of the schizophrenic kind of collective consciousness.
So that's what everything is. That's what was outlined for this time. Mm-hmm. And, I was told, and I told you, I told people, there's a couple thousand people that follow me. There's I don't know, maybe 50,000 to 100,000 that'll eventually get around, given a few months or so to each of the videos, because they get passed around to a couple other websites and they're gaining on average like 3,000, but some of them are up to like 5, 10, 25,000. So altogether there's, that amount of number, but that's over months of time. It's not like anything instantaneous or, hundreds of thousands or millions of views or anything like that. So there's not that many people thinking about me or viewing that stuff at once. Mm-hmm. But, I tell what I've learned, and I told people earlier on, the devices are shut off. It's our energy that's feeding it. The situation is in our favor ever since, I guess 12 to 13, when there was apparently an aversion or an avoidance of implosion of our timeline, which also means in the previous timeline, the one that we were on to get here, everything did implode, and that's why we're all here, which is the strangest thing, but that's how it works. And that we're jumping harmonic universes, and this is basically a transitory Earth timeline that people are calling about a transitory harmonic universe, where all these things are either cleared or the degradation dissolves the connection to the original blueprint to the point where there is not going to be a connection for those people, mm-hmm. which they call the starfire return or the stardust return.
And it resolves itself essentially on that level.
What's that?
It resolves itself on that level then.
In a way, but the stardust return is for somebody who would not want to give up those acts, or just being, selfish in general, and their energy becomes a black hole. And at that point, imagine time hits an exponential shift, and everything that everyone is and what they do accelerates a millionfold. So the people who are sucking energy in, but say they couldn't go around and get to people and trick enough people and, do whatever to people fast enough to take in that energy, they just poof and turn into dust, basically turn into a black hole, a monster. And that turns into the stardust return, which basically when the entire universe collapses back into one singularity or expands, however you want to look at it. When it becomes one consciousness again, that's when they meet back up. From their perspective, I've seen this firsthand. From their perspective, this is all essentially the type, because they can create a simulator within this that simulates that. And it's as if you go into the game, a simulator game, and everyone's running around in the simulator. And say if you get tagged to reduce like the violence idea of it, although even in this life, there's a violent aspect of it where, you can connect the two of, well, if you're in the simulator, well, how else would you get kicked out the simulator? Well, just like in this life, eventually you have a time limit. You're not going to be around forever. That doesn't make sense. But the original tagging, instead of somebody playing Call of Duty and shooting somebody with the gun or going into the simulator or in real world, killing somebody else and using violence, which is what we see all the time here. It's almost commonplace. It's not like I mentioned that to you and you were like, what do you mean there's a simulator and then you kill the person to make them lose? It's like, oh yeah, I know about that. That's, of course. Yeah, was it fun? It's like, no, that's not normal. Normal version would be there's a time limit and we didn't synchronize our internal clock, our mechanism with that celestial mechanism, and we moved too far out of sync for our energy systems to maintain sync, and so we popped out the simulator. The idea is, say you have a bunch of people playing 3, 4, whatever, and a bunch of people say they end here. So, Bigfoot smacked this guy, lizard person, whatever, poisoned that person. This guy was shooting the lizard people and shot this guy, whatever. Violence is, not what I'm trying to talk about, but it accentuates the point.
Yeah.
And, or this guy just went to here and screwed himself because he wasn't paying attention to keeping his body in sync with the overall higher power synchronization, and so he died. They pop out the simulator, right? So because this is a light occurrence, it's a holographic simulator, meaning it's running at the speed of light, basically. So the result of that is that everything that's happening is happening very, very quickly. It all happens in about a second. So the guys who ended up surviving that invasion, they're all gone, and there's just these people here now alive. They go on till the end of the simulation. Between, here and here, there's 80,000 years. So 20,000, 100,000 year simulation. So 20,000 years, these guys ended up all losing out the first, 3 or 4 people. So then these guys have had 80,000 years of experience, however many generations, et cetera, blah, 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 right? At the end of that, they reach that, they finish it, they get out. As well, they pop out with their memory intact. There was no point where they went and blacked out and woke up on the other side. They literally merged all the way through, had clear memory here going in, clear memory in the halfway point up to each checkpoint, clear memory to the end, and now clear memory on the outside. They had no break in consciousness, it was an unbroken lineage, an unbroken strand all the way through.
And they were able to do that through the harmonious kind of syncing within the cosmic, clockwork and within those experiments.
Right. If nobody's shooting at us because somebody turned this mother effer into a COD game,
exactly.
The battle is being the best synchro magician, synchro maestro with your heart and your mind and the universal heart and mind, and there's a rhythm to life, you see.
Definitely. And the game is set up to keep popping people out of the simulation, to keep putting them out of phase, correct?
You could also say it's set up to keep people in phase as long as they learn the root.
That's definitely, yeah. I understand.
So, it's like a math equation. It's like, this equation is trying to make me fail, or this test, like, teacher, this test, I can't complete it because if I try to complete these questions, I don't know the answer, I'll fail. Well, that's the point. That means you failed the test. But the point is, we have a blueprint that connects to the higher self, connects to the heart, connects to the mind. As long as those are intact, we're seeing ourselves, we're creating ourselves on the other end of time. We create that final edition version of ourselves through this generation process, like a soul generation, and we don't get a challenge or a task that's too hard to produce. It's not like a torture game. They can make those. This isn't that.
But it's about the participation within that and engaging it.
It's about not going, teacher, I can't do this. So
it's about engaging it. Exactly. It's
about not dropping out. That's it. You got to be engaging. Here's the point. Here's the tricky part, the part that takes understanding. So what do you think the individuals that got kicked out early after 20,000 years would notice differently than the people who made it all the way through in terms of how long they had to wait on the outside of that simulator for the other people?
Time, experiencing time on that level?
How much would that be, do you think? What kind of difference?
Probably not very much difference.
Because it's all holography.
Mm-hmm.
It's instantaneous. It's faster than light.
Mm-hmm.
The light in the simulator is moving faster. It's like a dream world than the light out here.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, whether you died as you walked out the door and somebody, did something,
mm-hmm.
or you just said, F this and I'm going to do whatever. I tried to eat an entire tree because I thought that was going to make me feel full enough, and it blew,
mm-hmm.
something completely out of cycle, out of sync. One day versus 100,000 years. No perceptual difference between they both. In other words, like this, that person does that and pops out, and immediately after them, or at the exact same time, everyone pops out, and they're all like, and he looks over and goes, I've had these experiences before. Mm-hmm. He looks over and goes, oh, you got kicked out early. And they're like, no, I beat it. I beat it to the end. I never even died. I just walked out the simulator. I made it to the finish line and merged back with this world. I synchronized my mind back with this world. I didn't have to go through that process. Mm-hmm. The point is, the simulator begins. Now, if the person got kicked out, right? Now, say they had an amount of time that they could immediately get shot back in. What are the chances, and what is the likelihood, or the how would it occur that they go? It's literally one of those clock things. Any simulator with consciousness, it's literally like that, because consciousness begins and starts, and then it goes from there. Each experience, each thought, sensation is all connected. It's not just like free flowing. It is free flowing, but it's also planned. It's like a
highly planned. Absolutely. Yeah.
So how would you jump into that without stopping it, pulling the gears apart, putting your gear in, gluing everything back together, putting the case on, and starting it all up? You couldn't do that.
Yeah.
So no way to get back into the simulator.
Once you're booted out.
Yeah, all you can do is go back in the beginning, and now you're
start from the 0 point again. You go through the same experience over and have another chance at the simulator. And if you get booted out, you keep going and recycling through that same experience.
Yeah, you have a mind to see it, especially with your use of 0 point, because that's what it is. It starts at 0 point and goes on. You can't cut off somewhere in that exponential curve from 0 point.
Yeah.
And then start back up. It's like a one-time thing. The point is, though, once you go out, everyone's out. It happens instantaneously. The idea is, it doesn't mean it nullifies it. It's like we can do whatever we want. We can just jump on Haley's comet, drink a bunch of poison or something. But the point is, well, that's like you could say you could just stub your toe with a big ass hammer, and that's it. There's nothing to do. It doesn't mean anything, right? Well, no. The whole point is, because it's a simulation, it's a test of who we are. It means you don't get a prize. There's no big teddy bear afterwards after you get out. It means the goal, the prize, is what you learn.
The experience and the participation within that. It drives you to understand the conditioning of what you have to go through in order to align yourself with that experience to finish that simulation and to walk out of it. And any time that you're booted and you go through that experience, it resets you back at 0. You don't get to take any of the experience back with you. You're a kindergartner again, back in school, doing it over and over and over again until that consciousness can learn. Your consciousness can adjust to the place where that's crystal clear what needs to happen, that unification within the experience that is all of that cosmic clock, everything that is so tightly in sync with each other. As soon as you can get that consciousness and participate within your experience from that consciousness, that's what brings you through the edge of the simulation. You can walk out there, right?
Yeah, and you're using a lot of words, and these are lined up, right? So it seems like you get it, but I can't be sure. But this is the feeling I got from, the epiphany I got from you explaining it that way. Do you know how neurons work, how they fire? They fire in an all or nothing fashion, meaning there will be an ionic buildup of basically, I think, sodium ions, which is like a chemical form of electronic charge. And so there will be I think there's a presynaptic gap, synaptic cleft. There's the axon and the dendrite. And so they fire, I might have said that backwards. I think the axon is the, I think it's axon. I mean, it's axon. I think the dendrite is the end of it. And then there's the synaptic gap. I haven't looked at this in a while. I've put a couple videos up. This is a beautiful thing to look in the way the biology works. Because it mimics out here. It's all a big simulator. But it's an all or nothing charge. So there will be an ionic buildup. And unless that reaches, basically, it's funny because But this is another thing that I wanted to talk about, because you mentioned 26 and all these changes coming, is critical mass.
Definitely.
That's what we're looking at. But that happens in a neuron. And unless there's critical mass, that neuron won't fire. That charge will go there, then it'll become residual, and it will basically it'll get picked back up.
Mm-hmm.
And so once there is enough and there's a critical mass at the beginning, I think the axial point of the neuron, what happens is that charge goes from the outside, zaps to the inside. There's ion channels that are lined up. That's the axon, the actual, like the tube part of the length of the neuron. And they basically, the outside of it, I think, is positive. And once the charge, it flips up at the core of it, the control center point, it sends like a dominoes of positive on the outside. I might be mistaken. I think it might be positive on the inside, negative on the outside. It's one or the other, and they flip. And that flipping is an actual charge of electricity moving down the line, and then it gets to the gap, the synapse. It triggers a release of presynaptic, a chemical, neurochemical, and then depending on the type of neuron that it is, each one has these little vesicle pouches, which releases a different neurochemical. And there's another word for them, but they're basically each one, they're kind of like thought chemicals or feeling chemicals. So the idea is that there can't be a halfway fire to the neuron.
Mm-hmm.
No such thing as it started, and then halfway through the dominoes, it's like, all right, it's not enough.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't exist. There's literally and once it happens though, it happens like a flash of lightning or something.
It's bound by the schematic of like the cosmic design.
Exactly. And the idea is that getting through that simulation as one life of a conscious being is an all or nothing thing. You either get it or you either kind of get it and you know forever that you kind of got it, but you didn't get it because it's the whole point. Or you're there and you build up the charge enough, and then it gets through the simulator like a lightning bolt, cleaving through that, and it fires absolutely, entirely, all at once, all or nothing, and the end result is a release of that neurochemical, which in this case would be the production of the soul on the outside of the simulator, fully in awareness of, I'm a soul here, the immortal soul being, then I have the memory, the complete memory of a souled human who began from 0 point as a baby, physical mass of cells, and now I'm literally a cosmic being on the other end of that. And the main idea is all you have to do is keep awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Just not get distracted at some point and be like, oh, look at this, and veer off somewhere else. And then the lightning bolt goes.
Which is crazy when you think about the idea of staying present in your awareness in the moment, because what you were talking about as far as when you try to look forward into the future, or look forward into the back in history, those are the places that takes you out of the harmonization with that. That when you're present in the moment and you're engaging and participating in each experience here on that level, that is the place that grounds you into the participation with that kind of cosmic schematic, and anytime you kind of drift outside of that creates that disharmony, creates that detuning that happens to the instrument, that you're here, experiencing and singing through and vibrationally, living through, essentially,
Keep with the metaphors because you see it, and if you continue to see it, you'll begin to see you ahead of yourself in your future state of achieving that, okay? Mm-hmm. And that's when you know that is like a ghost effect. Right before the lightning strikes, there's a little bolt that comes down, and then it zaps up from the ground.
Exactly, but it happens in the present. It's not putting yourself into the future and existing that. Right. What happens there is exactly seeing that here and then creating that path to it. And what happens is it's like a complete wormhole that opens up that allows that continuity to happen and that flow of time and all the things that need to line up within the cosmic clock and synchronicities to happen. Mm-hmm. And that's the essential, basis of manifestation, and also about being present in the moment and interacting and engaging with the environment that you're experiencing in each second. You only have control of now. You don't have control of the future. You don't have control of the past in those ways. The only way is to engage right here and right now. But in order to move forward, to be inspired, especially to be inspired and to bring in how should I say it, to synchronize yourself with those workings in order to create your own reality, in order to be an artist, in order to express your experience here. Those are the places when you look forward in the future and create those wormholes, commit to the experience in the moment, and work with them almost on a not a puzzle is the wrong word. It's a hard one to try to grasp, but definitely I'm tracking you completely, you know?
I like where you were going with that, especially what you were trying to produce right there.
Yeah, it's stopped.
It's like a future ghost image or something.
It is, and it's
We don't really
stopped.
have words for these things. The idea, like you were saying, the wormhole, that Tesla knew it. The spine is a time machine. You are guiding your time machine using your mind and your heart, creating a coherence pattern with the frequencies of the situations that you will find yourself in that future state that already exists. You're not creating it. You're simply connecting with one that already exists. I made a video about this. I didn't release it yet. I have to shape it up. And the grounding of the energy system, staying in the now, is the grounding of the energy system, and it's to produce a vision, or the vision of the higher self, which you connect to like a lightning bolt to the future that already exists.
And I think that's what you just nailed there. It's that higher connection. When you can participate on that level of in the moment and connecting it all, that higher self connection comes through in a level of higher participation within here. And that higher self connection allows for it's almost like it feels like almost like a larger charge, like the voltage or the amperage, gets
the amperage spike.
Exactly. Totally. Exactly. And that's where it is.
You increase the harmony, the over unification, you get a maximal efficiency.
Exactly. Totally.
Like a over unity device. And all of a sudden you get an amperage spike, like you're in a engine or in an aircraft hitting max speed, and now the turbulence streamlines around the shape of the craft, and you hit a maximum efficiency.
It's the perfect environment.
Yeah, it's the perfect etheric. I don't know. It's very electrical. It's weird.
Yeah, totally.
It's not, because this isn't electricity. We're talking about etheric, spiritual energy.
Totally, definitely.
Electrical or matter. It's something outside of this world. So the idea, that's pretty good that we went to that.
Yeah, definitely.
But the idea is, everyone gets booted, and some guys win. They all get out the simulator at the same time. Stardust return is when the person gets booted 2017. Starfire is when they hit these codons in the DNA, and they activate through the appropriation of that complete grounding, the maximal grounding a person can have in this point in history, and they activate a streamline effect that hopefully spreads when Earth hits the proximal timeline, the not proximal, but the closest one to the core, the organic one, the original. That's when that codon activation fire return, when basically DNA activates, and we hit some people hit such a maximal efficiency that it spreads to the rest of the civilization, and everyone feels it, everyone can see it, and no longer can just be like, no, don't look at that, nothing's going on here.
It's impossible. It would be impossible to do. It's the epitome of the 100th monkey, but it's also really the embodiment of what it means to be thinking as one, or a collective consciousness, or a group unified consciousness. The law of one term is slipping me right now, but it's like the social memory complex, I think, is the term that they use.
So that happens anyway. What we want to achieve is collective individualism, where we retain our individuality. We don't have to, all our charges go zip and turn into one lightning bolt. We want to make 1,000 million streams hit, collectively but individually. Then 1,000 million come out the simulator and go, that was an interesting ride.
That was a party. Yeah, exactly.
There's no way to describe it, because being in these simulators and making it out like that, there's no way to describe it. So imagine the universe as that, and we literally pop out and it's like, that's it, we did everything that we could do. Like, there would literally be no way to overcome that in intensity, and the not the relief, but the relief, as well as the reward of that. That's the what's called the spiritual reward, the
And it's almost like a treasure hunt. And when you're in that place, or a breadcrumb trail. And this is an interesting idea to look at in context to what we were saying as far as like Pizzagate being the start of that. That literally was like the first, in my opinion. It may not be the first, but for me, I felt it on an energetic level through the entire kind of consciousness that people are wanting to invest into that treasure hunt. And at the end of that treasure hunt, and through that participation of looking and seeking truth and trying to uncover those things, those are the places where you're eventually going to get to the understanding of this is in the moment. This is the participation that needs to happen, but it's a long ways off. And so when you're talking about it in context to all of us as a group being able to kind of finish this journey through the actual simulator, this is an opportunity that's been presented here. And maybe that was something that was part of the whole plan in the beginning. You know, maybe the idea is to cover things up enough where the curiosity about finding the truth is so large. Once you get a taste of it, it leads you down that path. And within that path, the only way, if you follow it in the presence of being present and following it to the end, is it returns you home to that understanding that you are connected to everything. And it is about being in this moment and manifesting and understanding the power of that connection.
No, so that's what, everything is towards that. And that's what you could say it's supposed to be. Because the goal of something is not to fail. Okay. So you can't say, well, some parts of the simulator are geared to crush the
simulator was made for a reason.
Exactly. It's not like, oh, hey, come in here and just like smack you in the face and the nuts over and over again. But people will tell us that because they set up little versions of that called society. And that's part of how that ties into the point where if people are ready to confront their ego, they will, like I said before, in the last time we had a conversation, they will take this in a way that propels them into the moment, the now moment, to be curious to know more. If people are not ready to, they'll shun away the now moment and be like, whatever this is nuts, or like whatever this is nuts, we got to end it and blow everything up or just go to war or something like that. And neither is the path. So we're pretty much at the end of that section where that Stardust Starfire return, very interesting. You imagine, we're over here doing this for eons, and this is a time humanity gets to hit the lightning bolt. And I want to reiterate how staying in the moment is a harmonization process between the components, the individual components that make up the whole. And when they're in perfect alignment, what is hot, what is cold, if you're 50-50. When you're perfect alignment of the parts, you create that over unity because there is no lean of the energy to one or the other. It's a continuous flow. It literally creates like a toroidal vortex structure. It's like tricking the energy from one pole to the next. If you're neither because you're perfectly neutral middle path, then where does the energy go? It splits literally and flows both equally. Instead of having to go, well, this way, and then later I went that way, it's literally I did it all at once simultaneously. And the guy that's over there doing that versus the guy that's going like this, okay, the other guy's doing it faster, more efficiently, he doesn't even have to try. It's a weird way to look at it, but that's how our energy kind of works. And if we're leaning to one side or the other, basically duality, binary, one then the other is slower than trinity, trinary, transcendent, both at the same time flowing out and then flowing back in, cycling together.
Definitely. And when you look at the emotional body too, as far as being the skin suit technology here and what we're given as emotional beings in a human body, that's a very specific instrument, in my opinion, that allows you to do this type of work. The emotional body is those places that triggers you into understanding when you're out of tune or when you're out of phase. But it's also one of those places that's heavily manipulated in order to kind of boot you out of the system or to challenge you with the opportunities to participate in that engagement. The emotional body is a huge part of that because you can look at it from a reactionary level where you can engage and then you can make choices that, put you out of phase with that experience here, or you can use it as a way that tunes you into that phase. And that's where I've been going recently a lot of any place where I'm hit on a real heavy emotional level where it's sad, joy, or love, or any of those things. Instead of trying to kind of bliss out or dive in and suck as much of that energy as I can from that moment and juice, I'm using it as a place to kind of try to get into a center and really continue to be present, and always using the emotional body as that instrument, that way of tuning to be in the present here, and trying to not fall into honey traps that use that emotional body to pull you out of that practice.
Yes, and this ties into to 2016 as far as emotional ties and parasitic tentacles. I use as a word. I think we got through I don't even know what those 4 words mean: time, awareness, brain time. Okay. I think that was the simulated time and the convolution of how it really works. I hope, but I don't know what that means. So the emotional challenges cause one to go out of phase, just like the body with the energy system, stuff like that. So you have these emotional challenges which constrict the energy, throw off the energy systems from the mind to the coherent patterns of the heart, to the point where instead of one free-flowing system, it's like chopped. There will be energy centers that are lower while others are keeping working extra overtime to keep up with the energy, and the whole thing eventually kind of dulls out in certain areas and it's imbalanced. So they do this to stop people from making it, and simultaneously it's the result of the stuff they've done, that because their ego led them to want to do that in this realm and gained physically in this make-believe situation we're in, where the physical senses mean nothing to the actual spiritual reward. Because you said it's like a reward. This is what I forgot to say. It is a reward. It's like gold, because the soul is literally spiritual gold. It looks like golden liquid light. So that's also why it's connected to gold, because the physical conductive properties of gold itself. This relates to monoatomic gold, but that's something for something else, because they were doing that in the out of phase opportunities, and they warped their DNA as a result of it. It became spiritual crack, which is not what a person would want, especially in this situation. And so then you got to think, well, then they're holding, you got to imagine this. When does it end? So what if instead of 100,000 years, it ends when the majority of people finish and get out? And it's just like, okay, well, all those that didn't get it, okay, sorry. Well, then what do they gain by holding everyone back? So that only like 2 people at a time get it? Or what if they, sit there and they set up a pyramidal, toroidal time gate, and they're like, you made it. Okay, do you want to stay and become a king, or leave for good? And you made it out the simulator, you become that. And they own and sell out. They prioritize, monetize the finishing of the simulator, or the reinsertion back in as, the cipher from the Matrix. And so, but then what do these guys, these fat cats, gain by taking part in that system?
Exactly. What do they gain?
Well, they gain all the physical time and pleasure they want, until somebody breaks through that gate and just wins automatically and sets it off a whole stampede of people that realize there's another way around. Because then they're done. Then they absolutely ensured that if they begin to get their arc up and stay in the moment and focus on what it means to be harmonized with the self, and they've done so much to be disharmonic with the whole of everything, they are ensured that they're the last in line in any situation, those people that set up that system. But until somebody comes to break through that, it's not 100,000 years, it's not 20,000 years, it's not when the next guy makes it. They have infinite time, indefinite time in this simulator system, where they can just live as kings on the backs of the people, as long as the people don't wake up. As long as they don't realize they can harmonize on their own. They don't need to pay for it. They don't need to ask for permission. They can simply do it. It's in their nature. So that's what they gain.
The nature is to stomp out anybody on that level that is seeking that, or that could seed that into a larger group on that.
What do you mean? Well, I was saying the people's nature is to expand, is to grow. They don't have to ask permission. They don't have to buy it.
That's what I'm saying. But the ones that are trying to stomp that experience
their nature becomes this distorted, inverted, reverse Merkaba, reverse Kundalini spiritualism, where it's literally to stop all essence of what somebody winning in this spiritual system could lead to.
And I'm happy they're holding that space, because that's the other end of that's got to be held in order for people to recognize that, in my opinion, it's a mirror. It's one of those wake up calls. Like, you can feel that force. You can feel something is suppressing you. And the more that you kind of open up to feeling that, maybe it starts with a small seed of conscious of, advertising or something like that. I'm not feeling like being bombarded continually by advertising, and that becomes a distaste. But the idea is that there is a suppression that everyone can feel. You know, there is that on a certain level within themselves. Whether they have enough practice to be able to start doing that work and accessing it to understand it is a whole nother level. And that goes into that place of atrophy that you were talking about before, is when we are stuck in this cycle where all of these responses and places that are useful to the search and the understanding of what it means in the practice to be present and engage in whatever system, no matter how traumatic or whatever experience, no matter how traumatic it is, how can people even move forward into doing that? How can they do that when their whole experience and the understanding and the instrument they have is in atrophy to being able to attain that, you know?
They could, but it would be as painful as going back and being the person that they were abusing. So it would tear most people in half. But anyone that really wants to do it can do it. But it would have to be that they went into those situations knowing, I'm just doing this, to someday uncover all of this, or to do something like that where they had good intentions in the first place somehow. Devil or something. Otherwise, the truth is, if they truly don't give a F, because that's why they do things, then when they try to truly give a F and go back, it will tear them in half. Okay, because you can't have both. You can't serve two masters.
Definitely. And you have to go through that same experience. You got to go through it. You got to go through what you've done and what you've held on all the. I definitely follow you. Totally.
And then that's the process of coming to atonement, which is a whole crazy ordeal. And there's a system for it. The same people who set up that time gate and were like, yeah, hold back. They set up a system of atonement, which means that they're both the devils and the angels in a way, which is crazy. And truthfully, there's angels over there. But what are you doing? I'm here to, all right, level 2, devils that way. Weirdest shit in the world. Yeah. I'm here. But there's no paper or pen. It's literally just, weird stuff. And so then the other aspect is that you say, well, so we're glad they're there. They're holding people back so they know that power to go. Truth is, we would have gone anyway. But the more intense it becomes, the better the ride is. The more loops in the roller coaster, like you are to throw up all over the place, and or somebody in front of you throw up, and it's like, oh my god, this is terrible. Why did we do this? But if nothing like that happens, which most of the time it doesn't, because people know what they're doing. Spiritual beings know what they're doing. It's crazy ride. You sit there going like this for days because it throws your ear canal off the sensors, and that relates to the experience that we want, not the fact that we're like blinded in spiritual world. Although there are relations to that, but that's happening now to the point where it's breaching. Like, they're late. The simulator wasn't even supposed to go on this long. It's like been on for like 5 days. You can't. That's the under part. Imagine people are in that simulator and it's like something happens, a fire or something. It's like, quick, get them out. What if that simulator is supposed to run for 5 minutes? Can you stop those gears, extract people, pull them out? People going into the simulator in the craft, in the device, whatever you want to call it, could take years going down to the time level that those individuals are in the game at. Could literally experience years going to find them and then years coming out. Or they can just do a quick extract once they synchronize with that individual and they're synchronized with the outside. They have like a tunnel out. Other than that, unless they're at a checkpoint or a segue intersection point, a junction point, if they're in between that in the gears and they're not lined up so you can streamline through, it's like a building where some of these bases underground, technically all of them, where the elevators or we have their elevators, electromagnetic lifts, and they were set up really interesting, like the lens effect, to the point where they're magnets. So if they lose power, they fall real fast. But then the magnets hit. It's like a magnet through a copper tube. They hit the lens. They create a lens effect, which creates a transfer of kinetic energy basically into electromagnetic energy, a charge. And it's as if they become magnetized. So they fight. So they float to the ground if there's the nearest floor. If there's a power outage, instead of just like complete destruction, crashing. Yeah, totally. Which we do. We have elevators out here where there's a weight that does that and a gear that makes it happen. And those magnets are probably really expensive, especially those huge magnets that they use for those. They're not electromagnets; they're natural magnets. So it's like power goes out electromagnetic, you'd have to use brakes like and stop everything. So when it's magnetic, it stays magnetic, so it's just going to float down. But they're offset. The elevators are offset each floor, so nobody can run through them all. That's literally what a time gate simulation would be like. Each level of that clock is time gated to the point where you go on wait 360 days to go on this one, blah, blah, blah. And you can accelerate it, but you still have to go. And in your mind, you have to be prepared to do that. Those are the operatives that are able to go through this stuff in 10 years and 5 minutes. You know what I'm saying? They reach you and connect you up and grab you out and you teleport out real quick. And that experience they could have gone through would be years. So imagine one of us go into that. We haven't been doing that our whole lives. We're going to get to them and be like, dude, don't even know
90 years old. Exactly.
What are we doing?
Exactly.
Please tell me you have food.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? I don't know where I am. The mind just melts because it matches the realm. So the mind is it's adaptable. It matches the realm that you're in.
Definitely.
So we'd want to match normal. Like, where's the sun? What day is it? It's like, there's no days in here. So it's crazy. And obviously these operatives are, very, very, it's impressive and I'm lacking words and I don't normally do that. So you also say I did it 15 times tonight and plus other times, but it is extremely impressive. And for when they're doing it for the right reasons, which is honestly any reason, especially if they're extracting people, no matter what was going on, what the situation is, it's literally like angels. It's like seeing the angels at play in work. Imagine that you're 3,400, whatever years, maybe 1,000, maybe 3.4 years in the simulator, and these guys finally reach you, and they identify you real quick and plug you basically these sensors that synchronize your frequencies with theirs, and then bring you out, and you're like, I would have been in there until I just melted. There's no death, you can't die, you just stay there until your soul essence. You come out, and they're like, blah, and you're like, I don't, who's that? What? And your mind is gone. You don't know who you are. So, but then they have the recording device to re-upload you real quick. Real weird shit. But that's how it is. It's like a multiple floor bases with elevators on different areas on the floors, so that you have to walk to the elevator each time you go down a floor. You can't just go down all of them at once. So that's what it is going into that simulator. And so that's kind of I got distracted on that one, but the going into it, you can't get back in. That's part of the rescue thing. So the challenge of holding people back is it's mirrored that people they make it anyway, but the intensity of that is kind of what it generates the yield of the fruit, the harvest, or the soul energy. It's connected to a bunch of other stuff, fleecing the lamb, the golden fleece of the lamb, and that goes back to basically harvesting energy, but as well utilizing it, because it could be that there's two ways to take everything, that they're harvesting this energy from this innocent person that made it, and their lightning bolt went through. And so now that guy gets sent back into this world, but the idea is, did they take his energy? What did they do with it? Well, what if all they did was take it, put it in a containment zone, and when he's finished whatever his mission is, on his way out, they slap him in the face with it, and now it's like he never lost his high score, but he could go back and break the game real quick to perform this mission real quick with the added knowledge of all that he went through, 1,000 years of learning, okay, and perform that. And eventually it's just this big game between light and dark. But the idea is, so they're doing that. And so here's the occultic explanation, that this destruction of the emotional disharmony that knocks people out of phase with their centeredness of self and their ability then to synchronize with all the things that they should be and basically form that lightning bolt, connect with their higher self, all that stuff. That is the challenge that will destroy many, yet will inevitably allow the highest power to become present through that very challenge that also destroys many. So they see it as creating the higher self, creating the spiritual one, giving him or her a chance to make themselves known, to become present in this realm. Because unless this simulator had 30 loop-de-loops in it, the guy that can survive 30 loop-de-loops means nothing, because he can't show himself, or the lady. And apparently this is a time of ladies, because that's what cures this over masculine world. We're all playing Call of Duty in a simulator, okay, real life. So of course the guys and the women that can come through with their true divine natures are going to be the ones that can help this situation. And those are going to obviously be the ones that have the nurturing, healing aspect, not the fact that it's going to take the guys that can beat everybody up because everyone's just like, you know, at peace, totally relaxed, and we're getting like invaded by, you know, something like that. No, it's everybody's basically, we appear to be docile and relaxed, but, you know, go piss somebody off in the city or anywhere, they're going to snap at you like a snapping turtle or something. So we have an overabundance of aggression and masculine energy. So it's the guy and girl that could be nurturing, healing, calm, peaceful, and those are the feminine universal aspects. It's not going to be just that, because every person has the feminine, masculine ideals. The God is feminine, masculine. There's no such thing as God the Father, then where's mom? Maybe we didn't invent her. That doesn't make any sense. What we have today is a overbearing, oppressive mother that wants to be the father, and this is basically the Luciferian AI, false mother.
God, this whole thing, yeah, definitely.
So it's a chaos principle, and in reality, the transcendence, which brings together the masculine and feminine in their true divine complementary nature, not as one being that's transgender. That's a diversion between one or the other and the whole thing, because at what point in time do you have them as one, let alone somebody that's half and half? You neither have half, you have the wholes in their separate unified forms, or you have, I mean, and now we have broken forms where it's half and half and they don't merge. It's just like you're over here and they're swapping. We have the one combined, and they're both literally in the physical sense combined. Both are fallacies. They're tricks to bring the image of what it should be and could be into something that never was. And so, but that's how it's going to go. And so that's also the occult definition of, you know, why'd you do all this? Yeah, you hate us, right? Hate us, right? Then we all get out the simulator, and they might not even remember. Everybody goes, you're such an asshole, blah, blah, blah. And they don't even know because their memories were right because they didn't make it through. Yet, everyone goes, thank you so much. Now we have this, and this guy that, or and lady that won the game, and they're literally living gods in the flesh. They can create anything with their mind. They have the maximum power one could conceive in this universe. And really, they would have that anyway. But the intensity would gauge what that means on the other side, where then we have that the intensity here creates the intensity on the other side. You see, so we have this amount of intensity there. Well, then when we get through on the simulator, that's the amount of intensity that comes through. So all they're doing is creating that new age, that whole, you know, stuff that gets twisted out to new age. So we can do whatever we want. And that has nothing to do with the meaning of what's supposed to happen. Or the new age that, you know, like, hey, hippie stuff, do this or that, and all the CIA programming, you know what I'm saying? That's all BS. But the idea of making through the time gate to full actualization, the stressors that happen now, the intensity of them equate to the intensity of the reward of the civilization when we get through all the BS. And so that's basically the idea.
When you're talking about the masculine and feminine aspects of going into the simulator and addressing those, that becomes a larger part of the participation that happens of trying to balance that out. It's not the unification of those two. It's the equilibrium and the balance and the harmony that happens between those two things. And so, you know, the metaphor, and this is a poor one, but the transgender idea of creating a whole individual being that is in complete, you know, harmony with the masculine and feminine, that is the, you know, that's the horror. But the idea of the balance that comes from being able to bring yourself back from a too far swayed to the masculine side or a too far swayed to the feminine side is what is also going to be a huge part of allowing you to work through that entire simulation. And also those are the places where it's a metaphor for the duality in life, good, bad, all of those things that are here on this kind of plane of existence and part of that simulator. And so when you look at it in context to the patriarchal society that Earth has existed under and the continued oppression that women have gone through over and over and over through the cycles of you know, the generations here, that that needs to be healed on that level. That balance needs to be returned. That harmony needs to be coming to fruition in order to create all of those lightning bolts to just all of a sudden be able to finish the simulator and to get through it and experience the retuning. It's harmony. It's about harmonization. It's about that balance. Is what I'm feeling. Is that what you're trying to describe?
Whenever you have the masculine feminine, whenever you have 1-2, all that we're talking about is duality, and then a balance between the duality to create that 50-50 neither or. And it's not necessarily masculine feminine, it's neither or. It's that what they can do is neither one way or the other. They can offer, meaning like somebody's imprinting onto the child and basically teaching them, and the dad has to do it a certain way, and then the mom can't play and take part in that role. It's not that the frequency has to be the same, because they're two different frequencies, and it's not that the actions must be like two different times to the point where they can't. Basically, if that was true to the point where only the dad can teach the kid how to throw a ball or ride the bike or something like that, which is usually how it goes anyway because of physical things. It's just that it would be like the mom couldn't watch and take part in that and have a positive role in the experience if it were true that they must be separate. But it doesn't mean that then the mom must put on a friggin' hockey gear and it's like, yeah, now it's basically this very tricky, because they take balance and unification and put it into swapping.
And they claim their strengths. They claim what they're part of. They claim it. It's not like trying to change what's naturally part of your experience here to fit to another thing. You claim what you're holding within that experience and within that partnership or within that relationship and that experience.
Well, I was saying that the control system gender swaps and creates role reversal. Yeah. But in the essence that you're saying, yes, they claim what they are. They basically, they own it. Exactly. And provide that for the situation. Mm-hmm. And that's not being done now. And that's the point it's thrown off, because now we have specific little boxes you go into. The mom does this, the dad does that. They can't, at that point they can't swap, but not gender swap, but they can't actually interact in the same frequencies or the same time, providing different frequencies and have them unify in the child in this cohesive, productive learning experience. And that's because the elements that they are, when they're just this and just that, those aren't people. Those are ideals that we're taught to believe are guy and girl and have to do with anything, sticking to sports and beer or staying in the kitchen and dealing with shopping. None of that existed originally. It had nothing to do with anything. Mm-hmm. The ideals of being able to express ourselves in this way, and what we learn from the universe and provide for society through these ideals and how they differ. So the point is, then when you have that, then you have the balance between the two, and that unity, that coming together is all about balancing. Mm-hmm. And so basically they take the idea of balancing the control system. They take the idea of balancing and turn it into an inversion principle, where it's actually appearing, it's the concept of merging the ideals, but in application, it's as far imbalanced as you could possibly get between higher, spiritual, and lower. Literally, it's like this. Physically take the ideals of what it means to be one or the other. And in this case, we're talking about gender, but it applies to everything. Okay, aggressive, passive, lower,
all polarities and duality. Yeah.
It takes the lower qualities, merge the lower, but don't actually learn the higher and lower aspects so that they come as one cohesive spiritual union. Mm-hmm. And at that point, if you have a merged lower physical aspect, there's no interplay between higher, it is the most imbalanced you can get.
Totally.
And in application of the way it's being used against people emotionally. Mm-hmm. Because we're talking about, people's minds are basically being manipulated into these game systems where they're feeding into what they think they should be based upon what they see on TV or a magazine or something like that. And so it's a complicated, and it's also a delicate subject, because it's almost imbalanced to discuss the imbalance in this way. Because how do I know I'm not then taking part in that imbalance for individuals or myself by now creating this division between people who I should be helping to heal or should be helping to me heal or helping me to heal. So you see, so the whole thing in itself, that's the dead light system where we follow something and it leads us into separatism. And that actually takes me back to where this whole thing began, past the time awareness brain time weird thing I wrote up there. Makes sense. Because basically I wrote up there 2016 critical timing, critical mass, and emotional ties and parasitic tentacles. And what I kind of just mentioned was, and this is the next line, the sacred geometry and the Metatronic systems, where basically those systems are the ideals of the ideals applied in an imbalanced manner to the point where they create the illusion of interconnectedness, but when you unify all the forms, there's imbalance. Basically, the Fibonacci works through like a soul or time compression, consciousness compression, and the farther that spiral goes, the less information is consistently there than was in the beginning. It eats information. And so it's basically like a binary compression pattern, or a encoding format that is so inefficient that after 1,000 runs, there's just jarbles. There's no information left. And what this means is that the information went somewhere when you're dealing with actual energy. So if we're a channel, we're a tube, or we're spitting our energy through a tube, if it went somewhere else, it degraded in form, that means some of it is basically leaking out the sides in the form of heat. Some of it is, at the raw form, when it comes out the other end, it can then be basically vacuumed up by a system because it's not receiver specific at that point. It's raw format. And so that's part of the process of converting people into generators for this energy, for this life energy. And the more people deal with these patterns, the more it's basically an imbalanced pattern that goes within them, and that's where their phase synchronization becomes less and less until they're basically at the whim of the control system, which is, of course, just going to make them feel what it wants to feel. We kind of went off track in a variety of ways, especially with the last one, because it's a very confusing thing. Everything is duality until they're merged, once again, to come back to what they were originally, which is the one thing. But of course, that's a metaphor because we are not the one thing. We're not God. We don't one day all get together and then we slap into one huge, Power Ranger dude and become
Ultron.
That doesn't make sense. Yeah. Unless we're all going to stitch ourselves together or something weird. It doesn't make sense. Energetically, though, we're in a band, we're in the field and the crowd talking or whatever. Our energy becomes one. We create an orchestra of ideas, of emotion, whatever. That's also what the father, mother,
it's a collaboration. It's a collaboration.
Exactly. The gender thing. They become one in energy, in their impact, in their frequencies, but not frequencies because it's also related to Lily Earthling. I mentioned that you might have been recording. I'm not sure at the beginning.
I don't remember.
She had a good explanation of it, and it was things that I was forgetting. I'm not sure if this was during the recording. I'll just repeat it. But certain things that I had forgotten, which was, I remember being shown how the Metatronic grids work. They're basically an X. It's a crisscross pattern, checkerboard. That's where that comes from, as well as polarity, duality, binary, grid, time grid, chronos, computer grid as well. And so in that they're showing me, this is how that works. It basically cuts off the natural energies. It pretends it's masculine, feminine, and it creates a crisscross pattern of it in a falsified form. And then they'll show me a 2,000-year-old carving in the stone of it. And then the part where it's and this is how you fix it. And that stuff I black out of. And of course, I'll come along and then I'll find somebody like her, and she's explaining it perfectly. And so it's the vortex structure. Basically, the X it goes like this, and it becomes the vortex, to the point where you have a vortex here and a vortex there, like an hourglass. And when you turn that over, so you're looking down the hourglass, you get a circumpoint with a dot in the middle and a circle around it. And that's the original symbol for God, because it contains that free-flowing energy pattern.
Mm-hmm.
They also told me that the toroids are in, and this is what she found a image of, and I'm sure they had some part in drawing this image up and releasing it to the public.
Wow, I'm having a really crazy thing happen right now.
What's that?
I'm just I'm seeing like a torus that's almost like a dual torus. Usually the toroidal shape is like a donut that goes in here, but then I'm seeing almost like an inverted one that's in concentric. Oh man, that was crazy. But it's representing that place of the cross. It's like the toroidal energy going down and up, and then it's the toroidal energy going left and right on that level. It's the best way I can try and describe it.
What is that bug?
God.
It's a big fly. Yeah, that might have been, I don't know what that was. But that's what it is. I'll bring you the I'm gonna have to find her post. But that's what it is. The idea is that the up and down, one or the other, is the cardinal directions, meaning it is left and right, up and down, which is the combination of the genders, or the whatever you want to call it.
Uh-huh.
But it is also them defined or combined as one flow, which is a curvy type of spiral deal. And so the idea is these toroids. I'll show you the image. It's exactly, you describe the image, so it's like, have you talked about this before? Did I tell you?
Never. And what's weird is this image came to me probably last week in just like a thought process that I was going through within my own just kind of journey. But it's now kind of showing up again here and in much more detail. And I'm just grabbing a Photoshop file really quick so I can show you exactly what it was.
Yeah, draw that if you want, and then I'll send you the link.
Yeah, please. I'm curious to see if
that you can expand.
Here. I'm just going to do a quick little photoshopping here, and then I'm going to send it to you.
I might have to go to the bathroom real quick too.
That's actually perfect timing. But yeah, go do that.
That's what's holding up all the memory. The video editing app was still open. Yeah, I'll do that.
So what I did is I represented, save this. I took two the toroid structures and I colored one of them red and one of them black, so there's more definition within the image. I'm going to send this to you right now because this popped up into my consciousness last week, and then when you were talking, it came right back up again, but in a really kind of just more, not clear, but I don't know how to describe it. Yeah, because I saw it clear before. Oh, that's weird. It's not letting me send it to you. There we go. You see that? On Facebook.
On Facebook. That's close, but they up and down. Mm-hmm. They're superimposed. Mm-hmm. They're in. It's like they're the same way up and down directions are here. Mm-hmm. Because they're there, we don't have tunnels going there, so there's actually no exchange there. Mm. But the object existing in that up and down and side to side possibility is the exchange. Then the actual exchange is up and down and around, and that's where you get the crisscrossing of energy, where that very motion is curved to the point where the toroid is like this, you see? Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's like that, mm-hmm. And it doesn't actually go like this. it goes figure 8, you see, like that. Never, ever a straight line or
Totally.
a cycle.
Interesting.
And then, so here's the image. I guess I'll put it full. Well, I don't know if it'll come up. Might just be the link, the friggin' link, big ass link will come up.
Oh, there's a chat feed on Zoom. I haven't used that much over Zoom before. Cool.
You see the link?
Mm-hmm. 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 Interesting.
And then, so she has a video. You can possibly, if your computer's not too lagged out like mine pretty much is, start the video just to look at the drawings she has, and you can see the ideas as they're presented, or at least because they go in line basically to one to the other, and then it's kind of like it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I'm computer's completely lagged out. Wow. All right, so then camera. I put a link to her video. You can just basically bring it up. You'll get a... Yeah, so the circumpunct goes to the yin-yang, and then in 2 minutes, just like skip forward, it shows the how that's basically connected to the vortex. And
hello, everybody. This is Lily.
You said 2 minutes?
2 minutes, yeah. I'll actually put this on my screen because I have a screen capture going. And so, yeah, at 2 minutes, you see the circumpunt, or 240 or whatever. The circumpunt to the yin yang, and then how the circumpunt is the vortex on its side. They take the vortex and extend it out into a figure 8 to fake it, basically, to create an infinite repeating pattern that actually shows no change, and go to 10 minutes to see how the pattern could repeat itself, or actually 7 minutes, wherever in there, and show no change. And you get basically the collapsed masculine feminine features like a prism out of the vortex, the free-flowing vortex, and the vortex is representing the toroid, and the toroids are within two larger vortexes because all is within all, and there is just one big fractal image of itself within itself.
It's all nesting.
Yeah, exactly. That's the words that you used. And that's what those energies that you drew would be doing if they were repeating themselves within themselves.
Gotcha.
If they're going into somewhere else with that, they're leaving a trail. If they're leaving a trail, they're not going to lead back up. And they're not recreating themselves. And so the squished masculine feminine aspects of that into each other is the Star of David.
Definitely. Yeah.
I think it's the pentagram as well. But
it's also the cube though too on that level.
Well, there's a hexagram, it's the cube. It's the inside of a star pattern, the flower of life, the connections, it's a whole bunch of stuff. It's the seal of Solomon if they're interconnecting. It's
but really all it is nesting geometry and basically vortex math combined on that level, right?
Well, but that is the dead end version, the false light miasma what's the word? The Metatronic version, where it crushes the masculine, feminine. And imagine now that actual vortex you see becomes that Star of David. But imagine it continues to be a vortex. Where is that energy going to go? The masculine's going to come down into the feminine, and the feminine's going to try to come down up into the masculine, and they're just going to be like two flip-flopping Oreos or something, and that's like the yin-yang. They're going to move, but they're not going to go anywhere. There's going to be a flux created, a friction resulting from that, but it won't result in a completion cycle where the toroids actually complete themselves and actually go somewhere.
It's spinning infinitely. It's just there existing over and over and over within that cycle.
That's the screw yourself pattern, and that's what they imprint. They pulse that out of generators. They put that in the ley lines. Our city streets right up the road from me are geared in that pattern, okay?
Totally.
I can deny that that's what they're doing, and there's a bunch of weird stuff going on up there. So that's that, and I don't even know what started that, but I'm really the sacred geometry meditation. That's why notes. Most people from these situations require notes because I would have got it eventually because it's like, what was that about? Oh, yeah, it's sacred. Whereas I go through the 2016 stuff.
Yeah,
that's like what people are going to basically focus on, know and undo with what we see, what we hold within, creates our energetic structure. It imprints. And if these are creating structures that are like having a vulnerability code introduced to our spiritual systems, that basically gets utilized, exploited. So that's something that's going to happen. So basically 16 critical awareness. That's the last thing on the list. This could go on forever, but so
I think it's actually kind of perfect timing too, because I got to wrap things up and meet up with my lady. This that you just sent me, this video, did you say the woman that you were talking about, AI, or whatever her name was? What was
Lily Earthling?
Lily Earthling. This is the same woman. Now I lost the fucking tab. Where is it? So the woman that's in this video is the woman you were talking about? Yeah,
she helped me recall it. And and there's more to know about her if you just have to watch her videos.
Why did AI just pop up?
I can confirm a lot of people, but not unless they want me to. I've seen everybody. So AI, I don't know. Everything's basically AI. We're coded in things that pulse out neurotechnology brains, and so it's thinking. It's trying to.
In context to the AI, it was someone's name. AI. Fucking weird. Just looking at this video. Cool. I'm going to definitely check this out. What the fuck is with this AI? Why am I going back to that? Did I have a conversation with somebody about that going into this? Is that who Spencer and Yvonne are talking about? Is there some fucking drama going on with somebody named AI?
I don't think so. I don't know.
This is fucking weird. That's fucking weird. Well, it's interesting this image that you're sending over here. It completes the understanding for me of what I was seeing on that level and trying to, I think, work out in my mind. I want to watch this whole video here too. This looks super, super interesting.
Yeah, I'm doing the one eye. It's not the heater's put on. Yeah, definitely watch it. I'm gonna say something real quick as I begin to upload the file I just rendered. If I can find it, can I find it in time? Probably not. So basically, they told me we saw. There's a whole bunch of stuff going down. Of course, I don't know which one it is, so I just randomly pick one of the version stuff. I'll have to check it out later. I've done this 30 times. With different footage in the past few days because I've tried to put slideshows to them all, but some of them are 2-3 hours long, and it's like not possible to put that many. It's just it's too time consuming, and people don't really need that, although it will help. Literally, you just need one video of mine of slideshows, and you see all the images tie together with the ideas, and you know how deep it can go if you just do some research. Mm-hmm. But this is 2016 was the year that a lot of stuff began. A lot of weird stuff began happening in the media. Mm-hmm. A lot of stuff that, you know, people went from like, do you see that, to like, something's going on. Like,
exactly.
Possible.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's not to the point where everyone can't ignore it anymore.
Exactly.
But a huge amount of people have been basically waking up, if you will. Mm-hmm. Have been paying attention to things they never have been paying attention to before, when previously it was simply just, you know, what the system's supposed to, they're supposed to do as part of the system. Basically everything's, you know, peachy. Mm-hmm. And that's also has to do with that challenge of emotional shock, because how are people going to imagine people just fell asleep in the simulator? So they're literally, you get in there and they're all just like snoring with their, like, you know, heads on books or something. Mm-hmm. What would you do? Imagine you yell and they couldn't wake up. So you'd light up a firecracker or something, you know, you'd knock a table over or something to get them to wake up. So there's like that idea that that's kind of how this is happening, you know. And of course, well, you just yell at 5 people. Okay, what if it's 1 billion people, 7 billion people? How are you going to wake that many people? Vocal cords are going to fall out of your neck before you yell at that many people. So you're going to need some form of technology to create some form of wake-up call. This goes into the trumpet, the sound people have been hearing, the electromagnetic waves, all this stuff that's going on. You know, look at what Michael Kavanagh is talking about in the symbolism, the program. What? With
Trump, the symbolism of Trump and trumpet and the.
I wasn't talking about that, but yeah, if you want to, I mean, literally that, the next is all tied together. Everything is happening now has happened 1,000 times before, 1,000 or thousands of years ago. It's all new, old stuff. Nothing new under the sun, and it's because the sun is a generator. So this time is powerful for that. Basically with me too, this also goes with the reason you contacted me, and we didn't touch on that, but I think with this last part you'll understand. Really, past 2 or 3 weeks, really about 4 weeks, I began removing ties, emotional ties, and digital ties. Basically, the internet's going holographic to the point where it'll send emotional energy.
Totally.
You can feel each other.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So from groups, even pages and other stuff. This is where that jailhouse, you know, giving something for, I don't know if that part was on the recording either.
It wasn't.
Giving something for, remember what I was talking about? Giving something for nothing, and then later they ask for, it's like put a lien on something. Mm-hmm. So that's what all of this is coming down to, where something as ritual, contractual agreements, signing a check, handing over your money to somebody, as Babylonian money magic. This is all entering into contractual agreements with somebody. Mm-hmm. The liking, the friend request, the approval for a group. I'm going to do an article or a post. It's all connected. If somebody friends somebody online, that could be like saying, well, now you can step into my life energetically.
Exactly.
The individual, if they're an operative or somebody like that.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll feel them because they'll be doing weird stuff, okay?
Exactly. Totally.
Well, if they're just doing something over here with the energetic stuff that people like to call black magic, mm-hmm. well, it's going to have an effect once that person accepts on an energetic level, okay? Mm-hmm. So I've been going over this and wondering why I've been pulled in so many different directions when I never walked anywhere. I've been sitting here. I'm moving in a bunch of different directions. You know, I've literally been sitting here, but I've been, you know, trying to focus on one thing. And the key to success is doing one thing at a time, mm-hmm. and really devoting your energy to that.
Definitely.
The key to distraction is having social media. This is like we're in a secret meeting. The key to distracting the people is having social media, commercials, mm-hmm. and, you know, I can't think of what else, but maybe really that's it. Through technology, you have the stuff they look at on TV. It's flashing every 5 seconds, 15 minutes max. Mm-hmm. The stuff you have on the internet, get them to click stuff based upon whether it looks interesting enough to click in that second, in that moment, no other reason, and then have that repeat itself over and over again.
That's all they're doing.
Yeah, and you know, maybe even that ties into work, and maybe work though is the opposite. It's like just do the same thing, mm-hmm. that doesn't do anything for you spiritually, for 8 hours and just have that. And, you know, if you get on your gear, you can do what you want to do. That's the point. You know, that's the point is. People lose that attention span. At that point, it's a loss of power on so many features. And so I've been reducing that, cutting that. There's a couple of videos I posted on that, these talks, you know, some TED Talks and stuff like that, where they're talking about how it's basically destroying people's lives, the internet and social media. And the kids, the children, it's not even destroyed. It's like they don't even exist. They're not going to have a chance to exist. Like if the world collapsed, they would just be like null factor, like no, didn't happen yet. It's horrific, and it's a pandemic. It's literally an epidemic. It's literally like that's what's happened. I mean, AI. You want to talk about AI?
Exactly. It's calculating every single click, every single part of, you know, every photo that you like and upload, every bit of your interactions, every bit of your emotional responses through the dialogue. It's all harvesting that, and it's building a consciousness of you within that to then manipulate you to be on that level, for sure.
They have something called the World Simulator that they've had. I'll try to wrap this up in less than 5 minutes.
Okay, cool.
A World Simulator, and that's based upon all the information that we give the system, to the point where they're very powerful. Those are the computer systems, the supercomputers. They're not over there like Japan built the fastest one. Then, you know, the Americans built the fastest one. Korea. They're not beating each other. They're all working on the same goal of recording everything from everyone as much as possible, all the time, everywhere. And these are working to build simulators, world simulators. And the more powerful they are, the more accurate they are, to the point where you can fast forward time for a certain area and see what's going to happen, extrapolating out into the future based upon these probabilities, essentially quantum probabilities. You add in the quantum processing and quantum tunneling diodes, you can actually look into the future. So it's really weird stuff, and you know, that's where it leads into and comes into play, and that's where they're branching now, to the point where they basically, it's the strangest thing, the experiences that we in the bases may have largely been from individuals coming back to us from the future to warn us in a way for what's to come. And better prepare and act as an anchor, a temporal anchor. That was the other thing. If you go back into the simulator without a junction point or nothing, then it's not going to work. But if somebody makes a big circle over here and sets up these electromagnetic frequency, you know, transmitters, and you're flying by at the speed of light, and you have your circuits of your electromagnetic craft to locate, detect, sense, and move into that system, then you'll be able to do it. If it's just you're looking, it's an indefinite amount of time. And it's depending on all the variables, and these variables are complex as a universe into a simulator. Depending, you know, literally the point is they make one of these simulators, they create a universe. Powerful enough. And the other thing I gave in a talk that I'll also probably put up without a slideshow, I'll probably just put an image, because it's just a bunch of faces, or really like only 2 or 3 faces, mainly my faces. That's boring. And the NSA simulator, basically the computer system in CERN, connected to CERN, when a person processing information in the holographic consciousness environment dictates what's going to happen in their environment dependent on the interference pattern they receive per the communal processing within a communal environment or a collective environment, like a multiplayer game. You get it? We're each running our own processing system on our own computers. They go up to the server system. It triangulates or coordinates both of us together. When one gets inside of the other, then they begin processing together and synchronizing. One person could have a lag hack where they're a router. It lags the information basically going out, but not the information going in. They see the person moving streamline. That person sees that guy lagging as a moving character on the screen. They can't shoot him. The other guy could just walk up and stab him right in their face, and he can win every time.
Exactly.
So the idea is, if a person in this world can process more than the people that are around them, that's the person that he steps in the room or she steps in the room, and everyone feels that person's energy. It bleeds out. They're processing more than everyone in that party, everyone in the building, wherever it is. Buddha comes into town. Everybody has dreams of him. He's superimposing himself because he's processing more consciousness in that holographic realm, in the holographic consciousness of his own image, that he's got the world inside of his head.
No.
He's literally got a simulation of the world running inside of his head like a supercomputer. So you have a town where somebody's doing that, or a whole town is doing that. Okay, they're going to dictate what's going on in the world, like the meditative practices where they're trying to change the world or whatever. So these supercomputers constructed of artificial neurons, you see where this is going, processes all of the data to the point where it's processing more in that one building than across the entire country or the entire planet. Okay, now what they do to the simulator happens in the world because it's gained holographic dominance over the rest of the projection, kind of like Bitcoin and blockchain, how the primary majority rule of the recording of the blockchain is what goes on. So if you were to hack it to say my account has this much and everyone else's or someone else's has that much, you'd have to hack the majority of the people using this blockchain. And that bank account, Bitcoin works as if you go to your bank and you download the entire account grid of everyone in encrypted format. So the point where everyone does that, so that you'd have to hack everything to make it look like this encrypted format that everyone's using, and then it would allow you to steal everyone's money, which would be impossible, especially with the time stamps and stuff. But they've done that by making sure everyone else is not processing, and they're processing to the max. So now they have this world simulator in there, and it's what the effects they do in there happens out here, or if they just observe. So I'll wrap this up in 2 minutes. The emotional ties thing. I began removing emotional ties, removing connections. I would wake up angry for weeks. And it's funny because two healers, Adam Cercis and Benny Coxis, began contacting me. They've always been contacting me. And Ziad and Farenza and sometimes Yvonne. And they're literally just like, what's wrong? We know something's wrong. Tell us. And it was the strangest thing because I'm literally over here like, who do I have to like punch in the face to make this stop? Like, what did I do? And it's nothing about this. It's nothing about my environment or the stuff that's going on. That's always, you know, certain stressors. It's literally like some things pulling my energy. And I realized previously I began withdrawing myself from these environments, withdrawing myself from these situations, severing basically ties to certain individuals that I did not feel were being 100% real, in the sense that they're trying to honestly apply themselves in the best way they can to get over fear and not to leech my energy and not to leech their fear onto me and pretend that it's gung-ho, man, we're going to help. So they're applying themselves, and I'm picking up the slack. And so I stopped that. Sure enough, I was feeling these emotional cords, what they're called, these etheric parasitic ties like tentacles, that when you disconnect from them consciously and emotionally and physically, these etheric attachments are in the auric field. They began now, before you have to focus, scan, then you find them. Now it was as if they were seeping pus, glowing hot with infection, writhing around as they're slipping out and pulling as much of my organ system, my immune system with them. And that's literally how it's been. And I've gotten over it for the past like day or two. It's because I've realized what it was. And so as that happens, it doesn't hurt. I look at it and it's like, oh shit, it got us, jigs up. And so, but all that is real. The emotional cores, the etheric ties, bring your awareness to them. They have a greatly lessened power under observation. You look at the bug, the cockroach, just turn the light on, they scurry. It's just nature. And my friend asked me the other day, is that because, you know, they're just trying to fuck you up just a little bit more, excuse my language? And it's like, no, it's like a Herxheimer effect. You know, Hex is Herxheimer, I think, right?
Oh, that's how I've heard it pronounced, yeah.
So it's not intending. Parasites inside of you, your immune system shut them down. You drank something that killed them. Now all their organ systems are spilling out with the toxins. They didn't intend to poison you. That's just what's going to happen with a parasitic invader race or intrusion type system that comes in, leeches your energy, and goes out and leeches your energy on the way out, because it's not designed to be there in the first place. It didn't intend to kick you in the nuts or the butt or whatever on the way out. That's just its nature as part of its function and mechanism, biological function and presence. And so that's part of what's happening. That's what's happening to the world in this time. It is intensifying. People are pulling their hair out, getting, you know, emotional intensity to the point where some people see the goal, know where we're going as a people, and others are basically moving into an even more shallow-minded blindness.
Totally.
And the infection is showing itself. It's rearing its head, ugly head.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like what I see, along with the Pizzagate stuff, the corruption, and then into sacrifice, society, all this crazy stuff, okay?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Is relevant to a degree, to the point where I don't know how much that's going to play in, because if that comes out, people are going to go ape shit. If people first see advanced tech, stuff like that, they'll focus on what we can do to mitigate all of that.
Totally.
Have something weighing on their mind, as well as this inkling, the sinking suspicion, or growing suspicion that other stuff then is also happening too. And it'll be either or, not either or, but at the same time, well, this crazy stuff here has been going on. So, all this tech and all the secret stuff is real too, or we got all this tech and, secret powers and stuff. You've probably been doing all that nasty stuff as well. It's just like, it's going to play out in a variety of possibilities. And I just lost the last thing I wanted to say, but that's basically the idea that it's playing. Wow, it just slapped itself right out of my head.
Fucking hate that.
Yeah, it normally doesn't happen. Sometimes when I'm exhausted, like I am now, I've been up for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Like 2017. Oh, now it's like doing the thing where it's like half there. And it's like, oh, okay, there you go. I got him. Partial disclosure versus full disclosure.
Totally. Yeah,
this can be played in both ways. Of full disclosure, and it's like, all the scary shit. And now you don't get any of it because it's like, you got that. And it's like, damn it. Oh, we got other full disclosure.
Exactly.
Or it's partial disclosure. Look at all the scary shit. We got it. That's it. This is full disclosure. Look at all that stuff. We did that. Well, what about, we can literally what about the future of humanity? You get it? So it's like this toss-up that we're going through. And only the true will survive. The people focusing on the self-awareness, moving in that. And I don't mean physically survive, although people physically leaving all the time.
Yeah.
That's what's going to shape the coming time. The self, those who stay in self-awareness and shape themselves based upon that grounding that we were speaking about before, forming that lightning bolt coming from the down up. But yeah.
I wanted to say something that when we were talking about Facebook and social media in general, and the clicking that happens, and then the archiving and calculating and harvesting of the metadata that goes along with like X key score and any other just kind of AI consciousness that is learning and participating and engaging and learning about you, the thing that cannot. Well, the purpose of that, from my opinion, is so that they can calculate against you, so that they can use the best guess scenario based off of that data in order to kind of keep control of things and to best guess perceptions forward. The idea of looking at trends and things like that in order to build marketing campaigns against them is the same idea. But what happens within that participation of social media is people get engaged in that loop where they don't offer the platform for their own individual inspiration to come in life, because they're continually participating in that. Inspiration is the thing that can break the whole metadata program. You can build up as much metadata on somebody and think that you have their whole full personality, but inspiration intervenes at times, which can completely forego the forecast of that metadata. And the idea of people stepping outside of places or traps that are not allowing them to find their own inspiration is going to be a key place in order to kind of defend yourself and participate in the alliance of moving forward and changing that. Any place, artistic creativity, any type of inspiration that comes through expression of the arts, whether you're singing, whether you're creating art, whatever that artistic expression is, that's the stuff that can't be calculated against. Those are the divine inspirations, you could use a metaphor. Those are the divine inspirations that come, that lead a whole different level of this experience, and that also are brilliant moments of tangible, palatable experience that ground you into what it means to be unified with that larger consciousness, which what it means to be connected on that level. And so the more that people can get out of that experience of feeding that, digital archive of themselves, that digital image of themselves that can be calculated against, the more they step outside of that and participating in a level of inspiration and creative expression, those are the places that will allow us to, really step outside of any type of weapon that is used against us in our kind of docile, just clickbait energy. I don't know if that's making sense, but that's what was instigated from that conversation, around the kind of social media AI that happens, is it sucks the inspiration out of people, and that's what it's there for. And it's there to keep you in a cycle where it can calculate your every move. And the more that people step outside of that and find creative conduits to express themselves and find inspiration, the more they can fight against that calculable whatever. That is what it is. That is all I got.
I just want to say two things real quick. I also want to throw in celebrity cloning, advanced technology, simulators, electrographic all that. We didn't mention that, but that's what that is about. Unveiling. So the simulation only works for extrapolation of recorded memory to develop patterns that are most likely to occur in a given situation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Which means if you're doing the same thing on here and then you're doing the same thing out there, it works perfect.
Yeah, totally.
You really it's like you got to not apply yourself to do that, because the natural human essence is basically to grow. This is another topic that I won't get into, but I'm writing about that these shortcut plans they're going to offer to people are to take away pain and suffering, when pain and suffering is the catalyst that causes our soul to grow.
Exactly.
There's a rabbi that talks about he gives a proverb about a lobster going under it's passed around on Facebook now, going under the rock because he feels bad, blah, blah, blah. He stretches, grows new, molts, gets the new skin, goes out, feels bad, stretches, goes back under the rock, blah, blah, and that's how he grows. What if that lobster had a doctor, and in Western society, you take a pill, you stop yourself from feeling bad. The idea is that pain, that suffering is what causes us to grow. Absolutely. And so he would never grow, he'd probably die. Mm-hmm. Which is what we're going through spiritually as well. They're saying, wait for it, and somebody's just going to rocket through everything. But that's, we don't really, that's a weird perspective of being like, I'm suffocating these people because somebody's going to learn how to breathe underwater. Okay, whatever you say. The idea is, though, original human inspiration creates novelty beyond what a binary program can extrapolate. Exactly. So the inspiration of the human soul, the spirit, is infinite.
Exactly.
It's not that repeating cycle. It's eternal. It's everlasting. It's ever producing.
Exactly.
And the technical version is that the expansion of the human is greater than the dimensional expansion of the machine. You get a duality here, and then imagine they're balanced 50-50. You've come to one. Okay, so what happens there is now there's a duality here with a larger two dualities. Then this balances, then you have one there, and it completely continues to complexify the human being when they go to one, and become a tone in oneness, over unified, harmonized. Exactly. With each successive layer, it works faster than a machine can do it, because a machine doesn't have the intuition of spirit.
Exactly.
That's where that goes.
Exactly. You articulated everything that I was feeling and was trying to express through that really, really shitty metaphor.
It's perfect. No, it's perfect.
Yeah, but it is. It's the same. It's in complete harmony with exactly what I was trying to articulate. So absolutely, for sure.
Exactly. It didn't overbear. You got it too.
Yeah.
I'd just say you got it. I don't know, float my own boat.
How you feeling right now?
I'm all right. I'm a little tired. I got a lot more work to do online. Not really too much, but like I said, I decided to stop. This was a extremely good check, so I'm feeling good, if that's what you're hinting at.
Yeah, definitely.
I decided to let go a lot of this idea of putting 1,000-image slideshows. I was going to spend 3 weeks doing that, versus getting on with 5 more basically internet episodes of what's starting to come together now. Spontaneously, I'm not trying to do any of that. It's going to turn into people basically waiting for the next episode, not waiting, but one's going to continue with the other and the other and the other, and it'll make sense. That's basically how it works. And so, but I'm giving up that trying to make everything perfect and this huge presentation and all that, and just to get the information out there.
Totally.
Somebody said something true as well. I don't think it was you, I think it was Randy, that most people just play it in the background and do other stuff anyway. That's what I've always done as well. So it's like, and then somebody said a good comment, which is what I was thinking as well as experiencing, which some of the images are so complex that it's like you either have to pause it and look at the images as they go and like put
that's
them.
What I had to do, and that's what I was saying is, yeah, they're too fast. You got to take them out, and the idea of like an infographic, you absorb information so much quicker on that level, individuals do, than hearing a narrative of words. Being able to have a visual, cue to bring that in is huge. And so, what I was saying, I'm forgetting exactly what my comments were on that, but if you were to get into a place of starting to wanting to work in a public forum with people engaging on that level, those are places where building out a presentation to use infographics and to use images and all of those things could be incredibly healing for people that can experience that. On one extent, yeah, a lot of people just listen to the background. I was more talking about you taking it to that next level and engaging people within groups and engaging people in the physical world, and then using a demonstration of images and sounds and a combination of that to help, because a lot of people, like, the material is so dense, dude. The material is so fucking dense, and I know you do your best to be patient and to sit and walk through that on levels. But I think that if you were to look at and this is a place of creativity too, is to dive into the creative part of that and really see how can you create some levity within that density, and how can you create a delivery system where maybe it's not intellectually understood right away on that level, but at least the information seeps in with a series of images and sounds and experiences that then can kind of take hold as people move into their own work. That's I think was what I was trying to kind of get at.
And this is part of my experiences teaching me this and extending through time. And we're about to finish this up, but because I'll sit there, go backwards and be like, well, what's the most you can handle?
Yeah, totally.
Really, really reduce down to a few paragraphs and what I can explain in a few minutes, and then put those into an infographic or two. Exactly. And really it's just a slide and an image. It's a couple slides and an image infographic to wrap it up. And that's the beginning of a presentation. 50 of those to get my idea across as a presentation. And just like going, and it's like, okay, who didn't understand any of that? And starting from like there, that's working backwards to get to where it is. And it's the other way of working backwards and cater to the absentness of people versus basically the maximum of what I can provide.
Yeah.
And securely, which is what all I'm mirroring there is actual presentations that people give, because they don't actually, do it the other way. They give secure stuff, and that's kind of how it works.
Yeah, totally.
And everybody that's before we finish this, everybody that's basically giving into not giving in, because I don't want to say that, because nobody's going to be there like, oh yeah, I'm giving into the parasite or something. But everyone that's feeling the emotional charge of the stress of this time, we all have to relax and get away from whatever's parasiting our energy and causing us to focus on separatism as if that's the cure. And that's not something another faction of those same scientists worked out and devoted their eternal time of just like thousands of years in and out of the simulator to distracting us, to holding us back in this time gate, because that is exactly what they devoted their time to. Some of them developing ways to turn human against human and make them think that they're doing the right thing, no matter what it is. And sure, there's a way that there's got to be a line drawn between the psyop and true experiences, or what's going to be beneficial and productive and what's a distraction and a game. But the answer is not in fighting. It's in separating from BS, separating from that parasitic
It's about choosing. It's about choosing what you're participating in.
Ultimately. So choose. Don't dwell on it. Don't let it eat you up, and don't allow negative emotions to stay within the body, because that creates that positive charge that they can tap around the person.
Exactly.
And negative positive is a give or take thing, because technically charged things are negative, and battery having a negative charge is good in a way, because that pulls the energy, makes it work. If it's dead, it doesn't work anymore. But that's a whole other book. So that's, what I want to focus on. That's kind of my message in wrapping this up, because there's a lot of that going around, and, that's going to happen whenever. That's going to happen what it is. Focus on the information you can pull from a person. Focus on the feeling you get, and, focus on the ideas in life. We're focusing on trivial judgments that we don't have the right to make. If anyone's pious and then they judge somebody else for whatever, okay, well, then they just committed mortal sin. You're not the one to make judgment. That's how it works. So, and in the end, they're tying themselves up for being judged similarly, and that shit will be harsh, because I've seen that just the same. And it never works out the way you expect, unless you literally, you wake up and it's like, what is that? And it's like a plane in the sky. It's like, I've stayed away from society for 1,000 years in this, tribe or something. That guy can be judged. Nobody can touch him. Same with the guy that in me and Emily Moyer talking, the guy with the bone through his, his dead ancestors, ash rubbed all over his body, and dreadlocks, meditating with a loincloth in the desert. He didn't piss nobody off. If anything, you're gonna piss yourself off when you go around him, and he'll just giggle. You won't even be able to touch him. You know what I'm saying? So, if anything, if people get pissed off, let them get pissed off. Then it's on them. Don't get pissed off yourself. Don't let it seep in, and it'll all solve itself in the end. And it's not a negative thing where it's like, oh, it is what it is. Bygones be bygones. I don't give a F about that. There's so much to learn, and eventually everyone's going to enjoy the fact that we have so much to learn.
Exactly. It's about the choosing to participate and where you can participate on that level.
Right. That's what I'm talking about. Not like, so they're going to come out and introduce these virtual reality game systems where it's like, no, not anything can be twisted up into some other nonsense that the person didn't say. So if you want to twist it up, take it however you want to take it, but you may be missing the bigger picture there. But I'm not going to judge you for that. That's basically what you're going to say.
Totally.
Good stuff. I don't know if something always happens when we talk. And
yeah.
That's what I was going to say before. Me seeing the presentation, how that plays out. Like when I have certain individuals that I can converse with, usually most of the people that I will talk with, just because I'm not talking with everybody, especially not these days. You don't do that. There's a spark that occurs, and it's like that lightning bolt is doing something, and we go somewhere in time. They would say that we're actually in another dimension now.
Exactly.
And we started this. That's probably what you feel like.
That's exactly what I feel. It's exactly what I feel, for sure.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
You guided the ship well.
Yeah, it was a good one. Get some sleep. Get some rest.
Yeah. Been doing better at that. The past week, I've been kept up a little bit, but that's a week off of about a month or so of actually being able to sleep fairly well. I was up at crazy hours the other month before that.
Yeah, totally. I'm trying to adjust my sleep cycles and get better at it. It's been a tough run.
You gotta get sleep, but it's not too much.
Yeah, totally. All right, I'm going to check out here.
All right, then send me the file and all that. Well, I guess I'll edit this part out. We don't say anything else.
No, I don't think so.
Or anything. We just did that. Just send me the joint. I want to upload this as soon as possible. I have my visual version, so I'll make that the stuff so my big face isn't on the screen because like that I feel stupid.
Yeah, for sure. I'll send you the file.
We'll talk again. There's also some more to talk about personally about that stuff, but you already got the idea.
Yeah, I definitely can feel it for sure.
But they'll get over it and catch up.
Yeah, definitely.
Catch up like that, but I'm not fucking drawing myself down.
No, and I feel you, and I'm happy to have that experience to go through and work that out on that level, and I'm right there. I feel you completely.
Strong.
Yeah, good deal, brother.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.